Thanks for joining me for another piano book. This week, I've got a real treat for you. But before then, I want to take you through a thought process I've been going through as I've analysed and broken down the signal path of the production of a note within a piano in order for us to find the most optimum way of sampling them. Now, I've developed probably a fantastical theory that the attitude of keyboard players has not changed for centuries. We've always wanted to be the loudest people in the room, which is why a piano is a hybrid technology. It has a harpsichord style key bed, but the problem with harpsichords is you can't control the loudness and softness, and in fact they're not very loud at all. Now, back in the day, I imagine they observed that probably the most dynamic stringed instrument available in Europe would have been one of these, or part of this family. This is a Dulcimer. You also get things like cimbalams and stuff. Now, these don't pluck notes like harpsichords do, or guitarists. They hammer them, and not with a pencil, with a kind of a leathery kind of hammer, bounces off the strings. Now, great, this does loud and soft, and the big cimbalams, like the grand cimbalams, they go very loud and very soft. The problem is you cannot control the note length with these, and that's where the technology of the piano was revolutionary. So we have the harpsichord key bed, we have the Dulcimer in here. It's loaded into this kind of medium-sized wardrobe with a soundboard that resonates like a guitar, but it's the piano action that makes this instrument unique. So what makes the piano action so complicated is for every keystroke we need to control several different interactions. We need to determine what note we're playing, we need to play that note, we need to control the dynamic of that note, loud, soft, and indeed we need to also control its length. And whilst the name of the pianoforte, the soft loud, would suggest that the most revolutionary thing about the piano is its loudness and softness, I would argue that it's about its ability to control the length of the note. So we've got an energy transfer between the note being depressed and the hammer hitting the string. But the problem is, if the hammer hits the string and stays on the string, it sounds like this, which isn't much use to us. So what the hammer has to do, and I'm just going to slowly depress the key, and I'm not going to let go of the key at all. So here we go. Is it has to hit the actual note, the string, and then you'll see it just pings back, not all the way, just to this neutral position. So let's go really slowly. What that enables the string to do is to resonate, to ring out. But the problem is, now that the hammer is away from the string, there is no way in which it can influence the length of the note. It can stop the note from ringing. So what this key is actually doing is controlling two totally independent devices. So when we depress the key, the first thing that happens is this red thing, this felt, just comes away from the string. That happens before the hammer hits the string. So the hammer comes back, the damper stays away from the string until you let go of the note. So when sampling, we've got to make sure that we capture all of these transactions, if you will. Finger hitting key, key releasing damper felt from string, key transferring energy of how hard or fast you're hitting it into the beater, beater hitting string, returning to this neutral position, which I believe is something that's evolved over many centuries. They work out that not returning it all the way makes for greater efficiency when doing. And then finally, finger coming away from key to return beater to its home position and the damper felt to actually dampen the note. We can do this in two samples, the kind of note on sample, which contains the first 3 or 4 transactions, and that's the beginning of the waveform that's quite complex, and in the video above explains why us keyboard players are somewhat eager in our timing when armed with a synthesizer. And then we can either edit or record our release trigger separately, which is when the finger comes away from the key, the hammer comes back, the damper goes down. The problem is that's not the only way of controlling the length of the note. We also have the sustain pedal, which if you watch here, all of these damper pads are now going to be released from the string, which is why if I shout into the soundboard, hello, you can hear them all resonate. Then suddenly we return to a more Dulcimer-like position whereby the keys or the notes and the hammers have no influence over the lengths of the notes. It's actually the pedal down below. So when sampling the pedal down samples, we've got to sample first the pedal going down, which is not only agnostic of whatever note you're about to play, but it can be totally agnostic as to when you're going to play it. So that needs to be a separate sample. And then we have our sample as before. But the key thing that happens is the release trigger happens before sustain is released. So we've got down, note, release, pedal up. And this is the problem I've been having. So the EXS24 sampler understands that a release trigger should only be triggered by the note off information from a key, not from a sustain pedal. But EXS24 lacks the functionality of being able to trigger samples from sustain pedal information, so it doesn't get a gold star there. Contact, its default position is release triggers can be triggered by note off information from individual notes, or indeed the sustain pedal being released, which is why you'll see here this sample has become somewhat haphazard. So if you recall, a few weeks ago I spent 11 hellish hours sampling a piano, the original felt piano, which then became the soft piano, which is, I think, possibly one of the most downloaded sample instruments on the planet. The numbers we have for it are just ridiculous. Linked below. So we wanted to bring it back out of retirement, found it in a place up in Arbroath, shipped it all the way down from the north of Scotland to the south of England to Air Studios. And I was just, because I played the original felt piano, the original soft piano, I was determined to sample this one at Air Studios and do the whole hog. So it was a hellish day. At the very end of the day, we did our kind of piano book MVP version of the original felt without the felt on. And it's been a really worthwhile experiment because it's taught me about how much post-production this is going to need, but it's also taught me about the kind of weaknesses of our MVP approach. You'll hear in the middle registers there's a couple of very annoying repeated kind of quirks of the piano, and because of our restricted number of regions that we've recorded, it becomes a little bit repetitive and annoying at points. But as I say, it's an experiment. The other thing I think is going to give you a staggering insight into what this final full piano is going to sound like. I have never used a bunch of microphones that have sounded so different, almost like they're recorded in different rooms. Let me just take you through a couple of bits. So what I do is I've got group solo on here. So we've got the sustains and the release triggers. And together, this is one of Jake's tight mixes. This is the sound. Have a listen, for example, to these boundary sustains. Now, these are the Stingray mics, they call them, which are the contact mics that are on the floor. They just sound like nothing else. So it's incredibly upfront and close, whilst also being quite distant. So let's have a listen to the trees. And this is where we find an example of the background noise really building up there. So, as you can hear, there's going to need to be a lot of post-production. So these close ribbons, I think, extraordinary. You can't hear the hall at all. It feels like it's in a different room. It's what makes all of these mics so powerful. And then if we have a listen to the microphones around the back. Quite beautiful. So what I'm going to do is split these off, and then you'll be able to go to the link below, pianobook.co.uk, to try these out for yourself and experience this amazing selection. I must show you the galleries. Just insane. These are the mics right up in the gods. So in its current state, it's really a bit of a mess at the moment. I really need your help here. I believe that I may need to insert a script that gets it to behave in the way that we want it to behave. And I don't think we're going to get all the way with all of the various different transactions. I haven't recorded, not for this version anyway, any pedal down information or any pedal up information. But it got me thinking even more. You know, I mentioned that the pedal down is it's note agnostic. It's regardless of the note you're about to play, because it doesn't know what note you're about to play. So you hit it down and it'll be pretty much the same sound every time. But the question I ask is it note agnostic when you lift the pedal up? Let's have a listen. I'm going to play this loud. I would say not. This is an idea that I've named Afterglow. It's a faint echo of the note that dies away very quickly. Does that happen without the sustain pedal? Well, let's have a listen. It does. And herein lies a bit of a quandary, because I think what we're doing is we're sampling the action of the piano, but not necessarily the wardrobe that it's loaded into, because I think that Afterglow is created by basically a very small reverb within this wardrobe, namely also this soundboard. You can hear there's no control over the decay of that. It's highly resonant because it's a flat board that's actually put under huge amounts of tension. This is why pianos die after about 100 years, because slowly that tension lessens in this curved board that's under, you know, tons and tons of pressure. So Afterglow is something I'm going to experiment with next week when I go and visit someone down in Manchester who's got an amazing piano they want me to sample. And I define it simply as tuned and untuned release triggers. So last week I said I was going to show you something that was going to do this. Well, let's have a look at this. More of that next week. And whilst it looked like a badly made cheesy advert, I actually bought the unit, so I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. So I'm so excited for you to try out this air piano. It's just a kind of prototype experiment based on a much larger sampling project that Spitfire has undertaken. Please let me know what you think, and please, if you can contribute any kind of ironing out of issues. There's certainly a lot of things that need cleaning up, like kind of the way that the samples lead on. There's other notes playing, there's people talking through talkback. It's a bit of a mess at the moment, but this is the point of Piano Book. I get it to a certain stage and we all help each other out, and I hope you really enjoy these samples. pianobook.co.uk. And as always, we need demos. This is the only way people can understand really what these pianos sound like before downloading. The problem we currently have is people are going to Piano Book and basically downloading everything and then discarding lots, which is kind of wasteful. So if you find a page that doesn't have a demo on and you produce a demo for that page, instructions below, you don't have to give up, any rights, you don't have to give us the demo, it can sit on your SoundCloud page. Basically, when people go to a Piano Book page, if there is a demo, that's the very first thing that they do. So if you find a page that doesn't have a demo, you supply one. Basically, top A-list composers and our peers will be definitely listening to your demo. So it's a great way of showcasing your material. I look forward to hearing more demos soon. Thanks as always for watching. Surely it would be churlish not to subscribe if you haven't done already with all these free goodies. Next week is no exception. So ding that bell for notifications, and one of those Always much appreciated. Thanks in advance for that. See you next time.